This is E&P Reports, a service of Editor and Publisher Magazine. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. Greetings once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine, and today we're talking nonprofit pure play in Memphis, Tennessee. The Memphian just recently celebrated its second birthday with over 14,000 digital subscribers. Now, there's no print product here. It's a pure play. They're paying an average of $9 a month. They have 45,000 email subscribers, and they got a team of over 40 full-time and freelance journalists cranking out really great local news for the Memphis community. How are they doing it? Is it all about innovation, thinking out of the box? Or is it about going back to basics? I really enjoyed this interview. I'm going to tell you, there's a pull-out quote at the end I want you to stay for. It's about 35 minutes of your time. But at the end, Eric Barnes, the founder and CEO of this amazing operation, said, "When I look at my homepage, do I feel like I am seeing everything I need to know at that minute about this local community?" And that really hit home for me. Maybe it is all about staying in our lane and getting back to basics. But anyway, this is going to be a great E&P Reports. So stay with us as I go one-on-one with Eric Barnes, founder and CEO of the Daily Memphian. Welcome to E&P Reports. I am more than honored to be with you today for a number of reasons. Number one, you're in one of my favorite towns. Let me get this straight. Is the barbecue better there than any place else on earth or not in Memphis?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
That's 100%. What I've been told. I mean, everybody says Memphis. Yes. And the beer, right? I mean, that's what you're going to...
Yeah, you got to have a beer with it. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
But more importantly, you have definitely... You've definitely made a name for yourself in the industry because now you're in your second year, 2 years at the Memphian, correct, sir?
Yes. Yeah, Daily Memphian or Memphian, yeah.
Right, and you're a digital-only project. Before we get there, may I first ask you to give us a little bit of your background? I mean, how because you and I were chatting before we started recording this puppy, and you said to me, you grew up in print, right? I mean, you got ink in your veins from the good old days. How did you get started in the journalism world?
The goofy reality for me personally is that I started writing for my junior high newspaper, and wrote columns for them and then continued to work on yearbooks and all that and just got the publishing bug at the earliest possible age. I loved writing and I also loved the whole process. I mean, back in the day, this sounds terrible. I mean, but when you're 16 years old, you were in the 80s, you put a yearbook together. It was very by hand. It was, you glued the photos on and you glued the type on, and I loved the assembly of publications. And then when I got out of college, I had student loans. All I ever wanted to do was write fiction, which I do, but you can't make any money doing that. And I had student loans and I had to pay them. So I got a job at the Old Saybrook Pictorial Gazette as a reporter in the small town in Connecticut. And that was 1990. And just as a marker of how old I am and how far we've fallen, I would go to town council's board of selectmen meetings back then, and there could sometimes be 4 or 5 reporters. Right. These are towns of 5,000 to 7,000, 8,000 people. Right. You'd have the New Haven paper, the New London paper, the Middletown paper, our paper, and another competitive small local weekly. Right. And now we are where we are.
And maybe even a local radio station that had a morning show with some news. I mean, I remember those days. I was a morning man in AM full service radio in the 70s and 80s. I used to have audiences of 50 share with and we had hyper local news in those days. It was an amazing time. Now you're in one of the metropolitan cities. You're competing with Gannett. And you know that I previously, just a few weeks ago, interviewed Ken Doctor about, Lookout Local. And Jed and what they're up to out there. And I gave them a little bit of a hard time. I hope you're not, I'm not going to softball you now, but it made me a little concerned that Ken, who spent, 2 decades pontificating about our industry, jumps back in and does it as a pure play. Rather than walk in and fix an existing failing newspaper, he's now competing. You're doing the same thing. I mean, you've decided, you started up 2 years ago, you're nonprofit, correct?
Yes.
You are.
We try to run it like a business. Maybe we'll get to that. I mean, we want to be we try to run like business in that we're trying to not constantly fundraise. We want to get to financial sustainability. But go ahead.
Of course. I mean, which means you have subscription revenue.
Yes, correct.
And I'm sure you have donations and it's nonprofit and all that and more, not unlike
Yes.
public broadcasting. But you started off with a $7 million grant. Am I correct? A local grant from who?
From our community foundation of Greater Memphis.
Okay.
We raised 6.7 million, and then and that was local, and then another $1.5 million over multi-years from 4 local foundations. That forms our startup money.
Then you got something called the commercial appeal, obviously a Gannett property. Was there watching this all happen after giving, a century of news to the town? How'd they feel about that? I mean, did they lobby against you? Did they write editorials saying, how dare all this nonprofit money go into?
No. I mean, I think, I think and I think most people know, when you talk about the commercial appeal or any of these local papers, they're the people locally, and they are journalists, and they're really hardworking people. And the local editor, Mark Russell, who I had never met. I've been in Memphis 25 years. He'd been here for quite a few years. He called me. He wanted to buy me a cup of coffee. He couldn't have been more gracious and said, look, I love competing. I wish you all, I don't know if he said wish you well, but he was just unbelievably gracious. And that's been great. And I would say that them being here and us being here is a kind of a gift to Memphis right now. There's competitive head-to-head daily news going on here. Our newsroom is 35. Theirs is about, I think, a little under 30 now. And we're trying to beat each other. And I feel like we make each other better. Now, when you talk about the corporate level, and it was Gannett when we launched, it's since been Gatehouse Gannett.
Right.
I think they were pretty annoyed. They actually added people at a time they were cutting, the newsrooms pretty much everywhere in the country. This is back in 2018 when we launched. They actually added 3, 4, 5 people, I think. Our problem was always with Gannett, the people who are behind this, effectively my business partner, now board chair in this, a lot of the people who came over from the commercial appeal. Our problem was with Gannett, the way they had regionalized news coverage, the way they were putting Nashville news on the Memphis front page, Knoxville news on the Memphis front page, and it was really offensive to people who live and love Memphis. And so I always try to separate that. I mean, the local people are good, hardworking journalists, and I have no problem with them at all. But with Gannett, I think a lot of people in Memphis felt like Gannett abandoned Memphis and abandoned what was an incredible newspaper, the Commercial Appeal.
All right, well, let's get some hard numbers here. How many paid digital subscribers do you have as of this morning?
As of this morning, we've crossed 14,000, so it's 14,000 plus.
How much average are they paying?
$9.25 per month.
That's not bad. If you do the math on that, that's pretty damn good reader revenue coming in.
Yeah.
And you have none of the expenses of press and delivery. It's pure digital only. Went to your website before the interview, and I noticed that you don't lock down every story. You have exclusive content for the subscribers, but I always call them the news junkies versus the skimmers. I know that might be something I made up. You keep the skimmers happy, correct? That's your philosophy?
Yeah, because even though, I'm very close to this, obviously I've been living and breathing this for the 2 years we've launched and the year of planning before that. But we're still new. And so we felt like when we launched in 2018, September 2018, we had 5 free. Then we went down to 3 free. And then we began to add, and somewhere in 2019, late 2019, we started adding subscriber-only stories. So you didn't count against you. There's no way around it. You couldn't go incognito. We just locked it down. And then we started locking down probably 2 stories a day. Generally, there's a bit of an art and a bit of science to that. It's a lot of our more popular writers. It's not the city council briefs from last night that you can potentially get somewhere else. It's stuff that's very much exclusive to us. And I think going into 2021, we will begin to go to a registration-only model.
Okay.
Where we may make a lot free, like a lot of people. We've made our coronavirus free, and we make our election coverage free, and so on. But we'll kind of reverse the model and say, look, we may choose to make certain stories free for whatever reason, public service or enticement.
But at least tell us who you are in order to see.
Pretty much you got to give us your email to read coming up in 2021 at some point, maybe early.
Well, that's going to be my next question. How large is your email database as of this morning?
About 46,000.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Do you have any idea what the size of the commercial appeals email database is?
I don't know what their email database is. I know I'm 99% sure we have more digital subs. I think they're in like the 10 to 11,000 range of pure digital.
Right.
I've actually even heard, I was talking to somebody who said they thought it was more like 2 or 3,000
Right.
Pure digital.
Because they sell the combo, print and digital.
They sell the combo, which I get. I mean,
That's
like we
the
said, I
normal
lived
model.
in print
Yeah.
forever. What I think the thing that we've done differently from day one is we've never done hardcore discounting. We launched at $7 a month. When we launched, we said you can get your first month free, which basically meant pay at the end of the month.
Right.
We switched that but within 2 months we went to, it's $84 a year. You got to pay it. I mean, there was always, you could cancel and get refunded, but we've never done $1 a month offers. We've never done heavy discounting. Now we have 3 tiers, and it's $99 a year and $11 a month. So it's discounted if you pay in advance, but we've stayed away from the really low ball stuff. I think the industry is killing themselves doing that. I think they're trying to run up their numbers. I think anybody you talk to who will be honest at the local level, I'm not talking about
Right.
Times, Wall Street, that's a different atmosphere. Anybody at the local level will tell you if they're doing $1 a month stuff or $1 for 3-month trials, their churn rates are 30, 40, 50%. It's garbage subscriptions.
No, I've heard the same
I don't, it devalues the product. It makes it look cheap. We always try to tell people this is expensive. A newsroom of 35 people is really expensive. You got to pay. You want local news, you got to pay for local news. That's just the way it is.
I've only been a publisher for 1 year, and now I'm generating content. Yes, my newsroom is expensive, but it's necessary cost. Let's circle back to the email database. How important is that to you? How important is that to driving traffic to your website? How are you using it? Because I'm a big proponent of email. My email database at E&P is huge now. I hold that to my chest. I love that database.
Yeah.
Tell me about yours and what are you doing with it?
Yeah, I mean, that 46,000 encompasses coming up on about 20 different newsletters.
Okay,
everything from breaking news to a morning edition, an afternoon edition, to a weekly business roundup, a basketball insider, a college football insider. So everything from periodic to weekly to daily, or even sometimes more than daily, email subscriptions, and that is our number one source of paid subscriptions. If we can get you to begin to experience us through a quality e-newsletter, those readers come to the site more often, they stay longer, and they convert at higher rates than any other source. And so that's what we spend a lot of time on. And if you read articles, virtually every article has a thing, hey, sign up for more of this information, sign up for more of this information. And we didn't make that up. When we launched, prior to launching, we talked to as many people as we could. And that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago seems like a lifetime ago. But there were places like the Seattle Times that were beginning to prove out that, I think their number was that a visitor from Facebook versus a visitor from by email, the email subscriber was 25 times more likely to be a paid subscriber. Well, I'm not smart, but I'm not stupid. We looked at that and said that makes sense.
Of course.
And I think everybody's seen that. Everybody's really. I have a couple of 20-something-year-old kids. They thought email was dead until they got a job. And there was this whole idea that email was dying, but actually I think email is this incredible way to engage with news consumers, and particularly, bluntly, older news consumers, which are the traditional news readers who are more apt to pay for it, at least at the local level.
No, I agree. I actually think that, you and I both are old. I'm a bit older than you, but we go back to the days of, remember portals? Our sites were going to be where everybody started their journey on the internet. We were that big in town. So we used that stupid word portal everywhere we went at conference. Then we moved on to understanding search. And we said, okay, now we got to get SEO friendly because that's how people are going to find us. We're going to type in high school sports. We got to have our pages at the top. Then social media came along and we had to start figuring out ways to get our new, but now I believe in my heart of hearts, we have a society training themselves to like their headlines in their email box. That's where they're going now. And if you can make them happy once they click that email and keep them there. Are you seeing that in your analytics when you do those pushes? Are they staying? Are they sticky? Are they friendly?
Yes, they are. Yeah. You can see those are, again, you see the traffic jump whenever we send out an email. You can see, we watch our open rates, we watch our subscribes and unsubscribes and all that. And we try to, we test different types of emails, and we look at even things down to, photos, do you lead with a photo or do you not lead with a photo? And how does that, help your open rate and sign up rate? And then we try to listen as much as possible. I mean, there's lots of there is this kind of mini renaissance within publishing where all these publishers are sharing information through, whether it's Pointer or it's the Google News Initiative or the Facebook Journalism Project or all these different organizations, as everyone realizes, hey, reader revenue, subscriber revenue, that's probably our future. I think the industry has been really great about sharing information. And so, we got to sit in on a presentation from one of the top people at the New Yorker and who runs their email program. And they had done all this testing that we had always thought lead with a photo, a great, wonderful, colorful photo. They did all this work and we're sharing it with everybody in the group. No, you'll do better if you don't lead with a photo in certain circumstances, And so, I'm off on a tangent, but I just think that's where we are email is everything, and working to make the best email products possible is what will get us from 14,000 to our goal of 25,000.
All right, so put on your sales hat for a second, because I come from a sales background, as you know.
Yeah.
I am now a human being that is only going to subscribe to one news source in your town. So I want you to now give me that elevator pitch, if I can use that overworld.
Yeah.
Give me your elevator pitch and your unique selling proposition on why you, as much as you made love to them, you said they're a great local team, why should I pick you as my one source? I only have so much time and so much money.
I think it's because we are purely and exclusively local. The only thing we cover, we don't cover national news. We don't cover international news. We don't cover even really particularly regional news. We cover Memphis exclusively. We do 20 to 25 stories a day on everything in Memphis except last night's crime. And we do cover crime, we cover trends, we cover what's going on in criminal justice, but we are not obsessed with mugshot. So
you're not a if it bleeds, it leads publication.
No.
So how in depth do you go? How much are you melding, how should I say, are you blending opinion with news when you're writing these stories? Do you lean left or right? Where are you going?
No, we try to be very centrist. Now we have some left-leaning columnists and we have some right-leaning columnists and contributors. We try to be very, very clear that those are opinion or it is a guest column expressing opinion, but our coverage of city council is meant to be down the middle. Our coverage of local business, all that, we really want to be nonpartisan and keep the politics or the opinion into the clearly labeled opinion sections.
So besides reader revenue, obviously subscription revenue, whatever you want to call it, you take contributions, I assume,
Yes.
Do you do any fundraising drives? Like I was always the face of public television in New England years ago. Yeah. Come on, give us a few bucks here and there. Do you do little things like that?
We do. So we're a little odd this way, and this will sound odd, but we really are so focused on becoming sustainable based on subscription revenue and advertising and sponsorships. And we're about halfway there in terms of sustainability. We are fundraising, and like we talked at the beginning, we raised a lot of money up front, and we're trying to raise another round of money right now. We want to get away from that. We want to be based. So we don't do as many donation drives as you might expect because we're constantly hitting you. If you come to the site, we're constantly asking you to subscribe. So it's a bit of it gets a little bit schizophrenic when you're asking a subscriber to also donate. We do it, but we don't ask them for money as much as I think other people do. The truth is it's also really hard to get, those little donation buddies. Everybody talks about the Guardian and, the however many hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars they've raised with, Donate Now. Again, it's like the New York Times. I don't think that stuff translates at the local level. And I think you can do a donation only site. Public radio, public television has proven that can be successful. But for us,
you're operating as a business. You don't want to put that nonprofit hat on like public broadcasting and guilt people to death.
Right.
I mean, where you if you want to keep Sesame Street on the air, give us a few bucks. It's not that kind of a play.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with them doing that. And I'm sure there are news sites out there that do that. And I think that's a perfectly valid business model. It's just not the model we took. So we've pursued more foundations saying, hey, here's our long-term, our 5-year plan, now 3 more years. to sustainability, help us get there. I mean, we sort of generally refer to it as, philanthropic venture capital, and versus constant giving.
Do you know Walter Hussman? Does that ring a bell?
Oh yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah, of course. They are doing fascinating stuff. I've only met Walter once. It was the last conference I did before. It was the what's that called? The mega conference.
The mega conference. I was there too.
I've known of him. I mean, for people who don't know, he's the Little Rock Democrat Gazette, a really great paper that's doing fascinating things going digital. I got to meet him. He was nice enough to come to a thing where I was on a panel. And it was a real honor to meet him because I think what they're doing is so creative and so interesting.
He was in your box with me just about a month ago because I was checking in with him, after the full year of the iPads he gave to everybody, and they're doing very well. I love Walter. I think he's it's just quite an honor. But he did say these words, and I'm paraphrasing. I said, what about nonprofit? I mean, here we are in Salt Lake. We brought up your name. He said, it's an oxymoron. Without the need for profitability, without that race for the dollar, you don't innovate as quickly. I'm not saying you already gave Walter a lot of kudos. I'm not saying but do you agree with that? Are you innovating, or are you, he said it almost like you become lazier in that environment?
I think it's one of the other reasons that we don't talk about being a nonprofit that often, because it does. I don't know that it connotes laziness, but it does connote a kind of softness, and I don't think that's fair. There are lots of hard-hitting nonprofit organizations. I'm talking,
of course, right.
But I do think that what it connotes a lot of things that can be unhelpful. Generally, a nonprofit has a mission, which means it has a statement. Often it's very supportive of the community. We're broadly supportive of Memphis, but we're also hard on the city council. We're hard on the county commission. We're hard on the mayors, And I think there's a bit of there's a bad fit between talking about nonprofit and objective, hard-hitting news. The other thing is, when I do hear a lot of people talking about going to nonprofit as if it is this sort of panacea. We'll turn into a nonprofit, or we'll launch a nonprofit, we'll ask for money, and everything will be hunky-dory. I've been on a lot of nonprofit boards, and my friend and business partner and board chair, Andy Cates, we've been even on more boards and raised more money. It's hard to raise money for the most worthy and well-run nonprofit. And it does sort of get you into a different mindset. So we don't talk that much about being a nonprofit, because we try to run it like a business. This is the first nonprofit I've ever run. And so I only know how to run it like a business. For us, and I think we're incredibly innovative. I mean, we've done things that are pretty remarkable. We're probably the biggest local, in terms of a city, online news site in the country. Certainly one of the biggest startups I know of. And we didn't mean to be. I don't mean that arrogantly. And we're doing a lot. We wrote our own CMS. We're constantly changing.
Really? Excellent.
We're constantly pushing to be different and to be smarter. So I totally agree with the trap that Walter described. I think we work really hard to avoid that. But I will say more broadly, I do worry that too many people at the local level are viewing this nonprofit, either changing to a nonprofit or launching a nonprofit, as a magic cure to the problem. It's still a business. Anybody who runs a nonprofit will tell you it's still hard. Museums are nonprofits. They have to take tickets. They have to raise money. They have to have banners in the courtyard. Every kind of nonprofit that's run well, they need to run like businesses. It's just at the end of the year, you don't make much money, or you don't make any money at all.
There you go. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you might be using any bells and whistles that, for example, do you do a best of where you mimic the other, or are you doing any of the contesting that comes out of Second Street? Are you doing some of the things we normally do on the regular, news media side to make a few extra shekels, or are you just holding pure to the reader revenue contribution / subscription model?
We don't do too much. We don't really do best of stuff. We did just actually implement Second Street, and we'll be doing some contests, some sort of fun polls, but real low, not a best of Memphis type.
None of that kind of stuff. No.
Really, and I'm not opposed to that. And I think that there are a lot of publications that make a lot of money doing that. that is a crowded market in Memphis. We have an alt weekly that does a lot of that. We have an ACBJ business journal that does a lot of rankings and best ofs in the business space. We do still have a big competitor in the commercial appeal, and they do some best of. So we've stayed away from that. I mean, we'll do, I think, and again, it's hard to do events right now. We do 6-7 events every year for the past 2 years that are kind of business oriented events, a look at commercial real estate, a look at a year in healthcare, a kind of profile of women in business, but we don't rank them or do best of.
But you still have a sales department sell content around that vertical, if I can use that term.
Yeah. And so the way those events in normal times work, we probably have 150 to 250 people at a nice location. We do a panel discussion. We have sponsors speak. We do wine and cheese afterward, and it's a great way we make some money on it from the sponsors. It's a great way to meet readers and potential readers. I think that is as much as anything why I like in-person events when we will get back to those. But again, in Memphis, that's to make big money, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And you and I both have seen all the, the various associations and people who are like, oh, this is also another, panacea, another, holy grail to save local news. I think in some markets, maybe it is. In Memphis, it's not. You've got very active chambers, very active civic groups doing all kinds of in-person events in normal times that you're competing with. We've always said, like, and we did the first year, we did something like, we were doing food events every week. We were doing way too many events, and they take a ton of time.
Yeah, I know.
And they're great to engage. I mean, there's a balancing act there, but we want to focus on high quality news, a great user experience, and converting you into paying.
Okay, so where are you at on? Okay, where are you at on the sponsored content / native world? Do you blend church and state sometimes?
No, and I won't say we won't ever do that. I mean, you can see it where it's done well. You can see it where it's done badly. I think for us as a still relatively new news source, that would hurt our credibility. And I don't even want to get close to that. But I'm not opposed to it. And I could see a time where we would do what you and I remember as advertorials. I love when
you're not allowed to use that term.
The great new thing is sponsored content. And I remember one of the first times I was reading about sponsored content, and I read the whole thing and I go, oh, it's an advertorial. It's an advertorial. This is not a new idea. That's not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
True story. I was flown in, this is when I was working with the Sun-Times, and this was 7 years ago, and they flew me into Chicago, had me sign an NDA, brought me into a meeting, had no idea what it was about, and they started explaining the concept that they were calling native, right? And they wanted me to help build the sales model around it for small businesses. And I looked at the kid that was next to me, was like 18. I'm thinking, and I said, advertorial. He said, no, native. I said, advertorial. No, it's native. So I took out my phone, no lie, and I looked up native in Wikipedia, and in the first sentence it said a form of advertorial advertising. So I'm sorry. I understand the concept where it has to have value to the reader. It has to blend, be approved by editor. I get all that, but let's be honest, there was good advertorial too. I mean, it's
good advertorial. No, I mean, and again,
I reject it if it's bad, right?
Yeah. No, I think the fine line with that is that it does need to be, you can't trick people. And I think when you see it done badly, and it's probably the most effective sponsored content is the kind that kind of tricks people. And I don't like
it's
that.
A trick.
I mean, I came up on the journalism side.
It's a trick. No, it is.
A journalist sometimes. But again, I've seen it done better. And I obviously Axios has done really well with it. And there are people out there who've done it. And I'm not saying we won't do some of that eventually.
All right, my last thing, because we're running out of time. I have a nephew that was embedded at the New York Times. This guy's so smart. He went to Parsons, and now he's at the MIT Media Lab. But he was paid by Verizon to work on 5G projects, embedded in the New York Times. And they invented some really cool stuff. And his prediction was that the reporters of the future will have to go out and simply use their phones constantly and bring in. I brought that up on a panel, the one you discussed that I did with Ken Doctor and Nancy Lane and all the other, and they said, no, it's way off in the distance. Where are you guys on 5G? You sound like you're so innovative now. Are you looking to get your reporters to become like the Max Headrooms of the future, taking that phone out and grabbing a video, even if they're all by themselves? What's your philosophy on that?
Yeah, I think we're a little, this sounds contrarian because we're a digital only startup. and we are embrace technology and wrote our own CMS, like I said, we focus pretty hard on the written word and putting high quality, written news out there and breaking news and doing it as quickly and efficiently as possible. And there are bells and whistles and kind of cool stuff you can do with your phone, and that's great. We've done some really cool stuff with our drone, video of big new projects and redevelopments. And you can envision with 5G and all these fancy, phone, computer in your hand that these things are now. But I don't know that
it's the written word.
It's the written word, and it's having a way that as somebody said to me when we launched, and it was one of the great compliments, and there are variations on this. They said, I can look at your front page, and for the first time in 5 years, I feel like I know what's going on in Memphis.
Wow.
And just kind of have a feel for this is what's happening from the city to the suburbs to the schools. And I might not read every article, but I can look at it and go, oh, okay, I'm kind of connected. That's our driving goal. And if we can find 5G handheld, cool ways to enhance that goal without it taking up a lot, sometimes that stuff, I know people sell it as being really quick, and it's not quite as quick as it seems when yeah, we'd love to do some of that, but I don't want to distract from our goal. I don't need gimmicks to get to 25,000.
You just gave me the pull quote from this, because one of the things I stress whenever I'm giving because people want to hear the E&P story, how we turned it around, all that. I just found my lane and I stay in it.
Yes.
You just that resonated with me. I mean, how many newspaper websites do you go to now in a consolidated hedge fund world? I'm not being negative, where all the resources are coming in. Can you say, when you skim that page, are you truly feeling like I'm connecting with my community? I know what's going on at this minute. And if you can say that to yourself, then I think you're staying in your lane. Do you agree? That's.
I agree completely. And I think that the truth is that a lot of those sites, when you go to it, not only do you get the Trump headline and the Pelosi headline, and you get some pop-up video, and you get a takeover ad, and the user experience is so awful.
Awful.
Back to print. I mean, I still love picking up print. I love picking up a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal, and just the feel and the presentation and the calmness of the printed paper relative to most local news sites. And it's one of the things we emphasize, and we put more stuff on our site, over time, but we don't do pop-up advertising. We don't do video advertising. We try to put the reader and the user first, because that's what's most important. And I think that that is part of what helps people connect to what we put up there as news versus other local news sites.
So it's not a question of being print versus digital. It's just a question of doing the job. I mean, you're not looking at yourself saying, I'm a pure play disrupting the world. No, we're just doing journalism the right way. That's what
we're just doing journalism the right way. And I would love to, I think we talked before we were started, I'd love to think that someday we could do maybe a weekly print product.
Or a monthly glossy magazine or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, we have too much going on. It's not that we're anti-print. It's expensive to get that going. And it's also just the time that it takes to get that going. But I think print is an amazing way to deliver news still, and to supplement, what we're doing digitally.
Eric, if someone wants to get a hold of you and ask you further questions and pick at your brain, how do they find you? What's your email address?
They are welcome to email me at barnes@dailymemphian.com, and it's on the site at dailymemphian.com. I'm on the contact us page. My email is there.
Let's spell Memphian for those that don't.
Yeah.
I'm just MEMPHIAN. So it's dailymemphian.com. I love this interview. I think you guys are on the right track here. I didn't hear the words like, oh, their culture is bad. It was more like, we're just staying in our lane, man. We're just doing our job. And I compliment you for that. Can we check in with you again in a few months and see how things are going out there?
That would be great. I really appreciate it.
All right. You have a great day and stay well, my friend.
All right. Thanks so much, Mike.